Welcome to There, an inside look at commonly confused words in the English language. Not sure if you're totally aware of this, but there's a big battle going on right now between spoken words and written words. This isn't something you'll see on the news, but it is something you will deal with every day, especially while you're in public high school. So say that you and one of your friends are having a deep conversation, maybe about werewolves, vampires, or the latest hip-hop album out on some railroad tracks in the middle of a forest, which doesn't seem to be the safest place to talk, but it looks like at least one of them is having a good time. If you are having a deep conversation with one of your friends, are you thinking about how the words that are coming out of their mouth are spelled, or are you just thinking about the meaning of the words? Chances are you're just thinking about the meaning of those words. If you are texting one of your friends, does it matter how the words are spelled as long as they get your message? Chances are they don't care if you misspell something. Like this young man is texting this young lady while she's driving a car, which is probably not a good idea. But chances are she's not correcting his spelling and very worried about that if he's asking her out on a date or asking her what time she's going to be at school. When you're talking to your peers, the message of the words is far more important than their presentation. However, I want you to think about audience right now. When you're in the process of writing an essay, a short answer, or a response, it's easy to forget that you're actually writing to someone. Whether you've thought about it consciously or not, you always write to an audience. Sometimes your audience is a very generalized group of readers. Sometimes you know the audience, and sometimes you write for yourself. Keeping your audience in mind while you write can help you make good decisions about what material to include, how to organize your ideas, and how best to support your argument. If you are having a conversation with one of your friends or texting someone in your friends or family, chances are they only care about the message that you're sending and not the packaging you're encasing it in, which is the words. However, if you're writing an essay, a short answer, or a response, maybe in your English class or science class or on a state test like the STAR EOC test or an AP test, you need to consider the audience who will be receiving your message. So how would your language differ when you're talking to your best friend compared to your grandma? Would you use the same language? Does your grandma even have a cell phone that you could text to? I know mine doesn't. It's natural for us to adjust our language based on our audience. That comes naturally to us. We don't talk to a baby the same way that we would talk to our teacher at school. That's not normal. It's the same thing in writing. When you're texting your friends, you speak in the way that would be easiest for them to understand you. When you're writing an answer on a short answer test or essay response on EOC exam, you need to adjust your language to communicate your message clearly to that audience. The people who create those tests and who grade those tests are actually former English teachers or current English teachers. So you need to use elevated language in order to get your message across to that specific audience. You already do this in your daily life by the way you talk to different people in different ways. It just takes a focused effort in order to use academic language on those exams. In English, we have a lot of these words called homonyms. They sound exactly the same way when you say it out loud, but when you write it down, there's 3, 4 different ways that you could spell different words, and in turn, if someone's reading your writing, each one of those words has a different meaning. Here are some of the most commonly confused words in the English language. Your and your, there and there, whose and whom. These are very commonly confused words in the English language. If you're having a spoken conversation with somebody, it doesn't matter if you don't know which there you're using. It just matters if your message comes out clearly. It'll sound the same either way. However, in writing, you need to be very conscious about how you're spelling each word. The packaging in which you put your message, like you're writing on a short answer question or on an essay, sends a clear message to whoever's reading your exam. If words are misspelled, even though the message is clear, the person grading your exam may feel that you do not deserve a high grade on that exam. So let's first take a look at your and your. First, the contraction of U and R is pronounced your. Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. Have you seen this word before? Contraction? Let's break that down. A contraction is almost like two words are signing a contract with each other. They're both signing their name on a document and joining together. This is basically what a contraction means. Two words joined together with an apostrophe to create one longer word. So the contraction your is a contraction of you and are. If you're saying you are beautiful, you could say you're beautiful and use the contraction your. So use the contraction your when you are speaking directly to your audience. It could be one person or a group of people. So check out these examples. I think you're one of the smartest people I know. I don't know if you're joking or not. In these two examples, your is a contraction of you and are. If you're not sure that you are using the right your, just say the sentence out loud and substitute you are for your, and if it makes sense, then you're using the right one. Next, let's look at y-o-u-r, your, often confused with y-o-u apostrophe r-e. Your is an adjective that implies ownership. For example, in these sentences, is that your new backpack? Hey, Alex said, what's your number? In both of these sentences, the adjective your is implying ownership of a noun, an object. So in this sentence, your would modify new backpack. It's someone's backpack. It implies ownership. Someone owns that backpack. And Alex asks, what's your number? Number is what's being modified by the adjective your. Someone owns that number. It's their number. You can even use these words in the same sentence. You're the one who lost your keys. Or your hair is so long that you are unable to see. Here's a few literary examples. In the play Romeo and Juliet, Mercutio says, a plague on both your houses. He uses the adjective form of your, describing who the houses belong to. In A Certain Slant of Light by Laura Whitcomb, one of the very first lines of the book is, someone was looking at me, a disturbing sensation if you're dead, which is a great opening sentence for a book. If you're going to read this, don't bother, is the opening sentence of Choke by Chuck Palahniuk. The next set of homonyms we're going to look at are there, and there. First, they are, a contraction that is still pronounced there, T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E. If you're unsure of which there to use, and you think it might be T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E, simply replace that word with they are and see if the sentence still makes sense. Here's a couple examples. In the winter, they're silent. The wind is so strong. What it says I don't know, but it sings a loud song. That is from a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge called Answer to a Child's Question. The next homonym in this series, also pronounced there, is T-H-E-I-R, and much like Y-O-U-R, this is an adjective that implies ownership, however it's by more than one person. Here's two examples. The Bettis family is coming. Where is their car? The players grabbed their jerseys. In both of these sentences, a plural object, in the first sentence it's family, in the second sentence it's players, talk about something that they have ownership over, something that's theirs. The players grabbed their jerseys. This implies that the jerseys are owned by the players. In a poem by Emily Dickinson, she uses the line, safe in their alabaster chambers. That's actually the title of the poem, where she references some characters who have no connection to the everyday life, the real world. And in this excerpt from Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, this is an emotional sort of passage where a killer is coming face to face with recognition of his crime. They wanted to speak but could not. Tears stood in their eyes. They were both pale and thin, but those sick pale faces were bright with the dawn of a new future, of a full resurrection into a new life. So tears stood in their eyes. This just implies that the eyes are owned by somebody. It seems kind of obvious when you break it down like that, and I'm sure that most of these homonyms make sense to you. So just be conscious of that when that you're writing to an audience who may judge you by the package in which your words are coming. One more example, there, T-H-E-R-E. This one has multiple definitions. It could either be a place, like a physical or abstract place, or it could be a statement or condition. Let's take a look at a couple examples of how it could be used as describing a place. Here's a very basic sentence. Alan went over there. This is saying that Alan went to a place. That's as basic as it gets. Here's another one. I left my keys there on the counter. I left my keys in a specific place, there. T-H-E-R-E can also be used to describe a statement or a condition. Here's what I mean by that. There are 10 teams in the playoffs. I'm using the word there to make a statement saying how many teams are in the playoffs. There will be many people at the game. Again, here's there used as a statement, just speaking the author's mind. Here's an example from Bram Stoker's Dracula. There are mysteries which men can only guess at, which age by age they may solve only in part. In this quotation, there is being used to introduce a statement. Here's another example from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It's lovely to live on a raft. We had the sky up there, all speckled with stars. As Huckleberry Finn is speaking these lines, he's talking about the sky up there in an actual place. He's referencing space where the stars are. And here's an example of a sentence where you can use all three types of there in one sentence. Did the Johnsons go to the playoff game? They're the family who brought their dog there. And I wouldn't recommend using all three theirs in one sentence in writing your answers for a short answer test, but I'm just saying it could be done. The last group of homonyms we'll talk about is whose, and whom. Whose and whose are actual homonyms. They sound the same when pronounced out loud. Whom is another closely related word that we will also look at. So which one do we use? First, whose. Who with an apostrophe S. This is another contraction, and this is a contraction of who and is or has. So if you look at this Darth Vader poster, who's your daddy? Darth Vader is saying, I think to Luke, who is your daddy? Let's take a look at whom. Whom should be used if you're using it as an object in the sentence. So for example, all of these words would precede whom in a sentence. That means come before it. So for example, we could say, for whom did you carry their backpack? You've probably heard the phrase in letters, to whom it may concern. That is a proper phrase that we still use today. You could also say, from whom did you get that gum? Or with whom did you go to the game? Those are examples of the proper way to use whom. This is an older word in English, but if you want to use it on a state test or an essay in class, there's rules for how you can use it. Another way is you could use whom is if it's receiving the action of a verb. So you would say, whom did you hit with a baseball bat? That would be a proper way to use whom. If you're talking to someone in person, they probably won't care if you say, who did you hit with a bat? But if you're writing it out, the proper way to say it is, whom did you hit with a bat? That's who's receiving the action of the verb, hit. Once again, whom. Lastly, we'll take a look at the adjective whose. This is again an adjective that implies ownership, and it always modifies a noun. So if you see these sentences, whose shoes are these, or I don't know whose car that was, whose is an adjective that modifies car and shoes. In this quotation by Bram Stoker, he says, how blessed are some people whose lives have no fears. You can see by the red arrow, whose is referencing people, talking about those people's lives. So to quickly sum up for today, you can pause on this cartoon if you'd like. Quickly sum up for today, we looked at three contractions, your, their, and whose. Those are all contractions. And three possessive adjectives, your, there, and who sounds exactly the same, they just have different meanings.